Welcome on into another Lunch Hour Live. I'm Sue O'Connell. Thanks for joining us today. Oh man, January 10th marks the 50th anniversary of Masterpiece, the iconic PBS drama series that really pretty much sparked America's infatuation with British television. Look at it, it's got 83 Emmys, more than 2,300 episodes, millions of loyal fans, myself included. It's been quite an exceptional 50 years. We're going to celebrate this milestone. I'm joined by special guest, Masterpiece executive producer Suzanne Simpson. We're going to take a look at the history and the highlights of this British drama powerhouse, get a little behind the scenes, dirt maybe. And of course, 50 years has been a long time, and a lot has happened since then. I was in elementary school when the first season premiered, so to kind of jog our memories a little bit, here's a look back at the last 50 years of Masterpiece.
Do you know what destiny means? It means that there is something in your life you must do.
You don't know what the story might take you. Whether it'll be comedy or tragedy. Or a story about love.
Yes.
All right. Let's just have it one more time from the beginning.
I'm Laura Linney.
I'm Alan Cumming.
I'm David Tennant.
I'm Diana Reid.
I'm Russell Bacon. Vincent Price.
Scarlet.
Good evening. I'm Alistair Cook. We open tonight a new television theatre.
On Masterpiece.
Home of classy drama.
I say, really?
I couldn't possibly comment.
Our purpose here is quite a clear one: to entertain.
You must experience it. The bracing shock of the first plunge. The incomparable feeling of freedom and lightness. As you give yourself to it fearlessly.
Do you think because I'm poor, plain, obscure and little, that I have no heart?
You said Soames tried to buy me, body and soul. You cannot force love where there is none.
Never be mean in anything. Never be false. Never be cruel. And I can always be hopeful of you.
I believe I am my best self when I'm with you.
Love, it is the final word.
Oh, I don't want to miss it.
The game, Mrs. Hudson, is on.
Classic, timeless, adventurous, individual, rebellious, never afraid to make a statement.
Hello, citizens of Middlemarch.
Those who've been made can be unmade.
Let there be no mistake. I am going to shake things up.
The world, love, people. What a gift it is to be alive in the world and to know you're alive.
I didn't expect it to be so marvelous.
You don't have to compromise.
What are you waiting for? And make a wish for whatever your heart desires.
Indeed, a masterpiece it is. I'm joined by the woman who drives the whole thing, executive producer of Masterpiece, Suzanne Simpson. Suzanne, welcome back to Lunch Hour Live. Happy New Year. Great to see you.
Thanks, Sue. It's great to see you again. I'm really happy to be here.
And want to let folks watching on social media to know if they have questions or comments, they could just put them in the comments section and we'll bring them into the show. My gosh, 50 years of Masterpiece. I can remember the very first series I watched in high school, which was Upstairs, Downstairs, and we kind of watched it as a joke, and then we got completely addicted to it, and it totally opened up the world of Masterpiece to us, a bunch of teenage girls. What's it like now to be at the wheel at 50 years?
I don't think we can believe it either, that Masterpiece has been here this long. But for about the past 2 years, we've been thinking we're coming up on our 50th. We really want to celebrate this because so very few shows are able to say that they've had 50 years of programming and are still here, still relevant. You know, we still have a large audience coming to us Sunday nights, watching live even. So we're very fortunate. We have a very strong and loyal audience. Yeah.
Masterpiece, of course, the longest running primetime drama series in American television. Loving that it's, mostly British British work that we're watching and loving so much. About 75 million people watch a year, countless more on demand now.
Yep.
Do you have a secret sauce? I mean, when I think of Masterpiece, I always think of quality. Like, I know whatever the story is going to be or however it's going to be presented, it's quality, and that I can count on. Is that the secret?
I think it is. I think from the very beginning, the mission has been to just bring kind of the best of British television. And in the early years, that was mostly BBC productions. And, it really has always started with the writing. And if the writing's good, that attracts great cast members, well-known actors to us now, but not very well-known back then. And even today, that's the same way we evaluate shows to put on this year is whether the writing's good, whether the actors are good, whether, it just is elevated in a way for our audience, which I think our audience has come to expect that.
I want to talk a little bit about your role as executive producer and kind of pull the curtain back a little bit because, folks hear these titles. You've joined us before, as we talked about. But what does an executive producer do for Masterpiece? What's your job like?
My number one job is to find programs that are available to us as a U.S. broadcaster and to begin to think about developing programs and investing in shows that we want. So on a day-to-day basis, my life is picking up the phone and talking with the UK producers, many of whom we've worked with for many years, but also seeking out new partners, talking to distributors who represent a lot of these producers, and just talking to them about what kind of programs we're looking for, what kind of programs they expect are going to be coming up in the next couple of years. Because today, I'm actually looking at projects that aren't going to appear on Masterpiece until 22, 23, 24 even. We're looking ahead. It takes about 18 months for a show from development to air. And so we're really looking ahead all the time.
So looking at that clip reel, so many famous actors you mentioned now, were not necessarily famous when they started. You also had pretty much the entire cast of Harry Potter before Harry Potter was made. Ruth Wilson, Maggie Smith, Daniel Radcliffe, I think we saw there, all together in Masterpiece. Is there a pipeline in Great Britain? I know that the way that the schooling works, that so many great actors get to choose their path. Is Masterpiece a stop for them on the way? And who are some big time movie stars, if you will, that started off in Masterpiece?
Well, I think, if I was to name a few, Benedict Cumberbatch might come to mind, and sort of Maggie Smith, and certainly Helen Mirren, Kenneth Branagh, Tom Hiddleston. There are a lot of people that weren't very well known when they, appeared on a Masterpiece program. I think most of the Downton Abbey cast, certainly a lot of them, had never been on television before, and now Michelle Dockery and, everyone, they're quite famous. The thing that we're fortunate in that the system in the UK is really a craft system, and people go to school and then they enter the theater, and they are very focused on their craft. And so they develop that through school and through the theater, and then eventually come to film and television. But by that time, they're very good actors. And there is such a good system in the UK for that there are constantly new people coming up. We have an actor who is the lead in All Creatures Great and Small coming up, who literally is coming out of acting school, and this is his very first job, and you will be amazed by his talent and ability.
Yeah, the new season of Masterpiece kicks off this Sunday, and that's with, as you mentioned, All Creatures Great and Small. Takes place in 1937, where James Herriot, right out of veterinary college, follows his dream and goes to Yorkshire Dales. obviously another one of the beautiful parts of England, and he discovers that treating animals, I think, which every vet will tell you, is more about treating their owners than actually treating the animals themselves. And hilarity and drama ensues with the Dales farmers. Here's a sneak peek of All Creatures Great and Small.
I got an interview.
Yorkshire?
Excuse me, this is Derby, isn't it?
I'd almost given up on you. I'm Mrs. Hall. I keep house for Mr. Farnham.
I'm Farnham, Siegfried.
New assistant. Oh, aye, another one. Mr. Farnham's new assistant.
Another one.
Let's put forward. I've got a gelding gone wrong in Hoof. Well, we certainly don't want that. You've dealt with many horses before. This will be my first.
Pick my brother up from the station. He should be on the 4:30.
How'd you find him? My brother, I mean.
He's not without his inconsistencies.
Inconsistencies? The man's a lunatic.
Blimey.
Quite something, isn't it?
That's no way to greet Mr. Harriet. You are a handsome devil.
Can I see you sometime? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have...
It's not that, it's just...
This is where you're hiding. Who's this?
James Harriet.
Harriet!
Siegfried's bark really is worse than his bite. Underneath it all, he's a good man. Stand up to him. He'll love you for it.
Up in the Dales, surrounded by those hills. There's no place on earth like it.
Careful. Once it gets in your bones, it's hard to get out.
I'm not sure I want it to.
So great to see the late Diana Rigg there. It's so excited to watch this new entry. What else can we look for this season?
Oh my goodness. We have a new show that's starting up called Miss Scarlet and the Duke, and it will actually be at 8 o'clock. I think it's the 17th that it starts. And it is a very entertaining show about a woman in Victorian times whose father was a detective, and he dies, and she takes over his business. And the first thing she's up to is finding out who killed her father. And the woman who wrote the show, Rachel New, it was an original idea, she had been a writer on Grantchester, and her idea was to create a relationship between Miss Scarlet and the Duke, who is a longtime family friend, but now is a detective at Scotland Yard, to create a kind of moonlighting romantic repartee between the two actors. And it's lovely. And Kate Phillips, who's the lead in it, is just wonderful. She's known for some harder roles like Peaky Blinders. She was actually in the Downton Abbey movie, and she's been in The Crown, and she just inhabits Miss Scarlet. She's great.
One of the things I love about Masterpiece is folks discovering it. You know, it's like it does its very own marketing. What else is coming up?
We also have a 3-part mini show called The Long Song. It's a very moving story about Jamaica and the time of the end of slavery, and it follows a woman, July, who is a slave to some British landowners. And it's a very poignant story about a woman who perseveres through the worst of circumstances. And we were so moved by the show that we really wanted to have it in our January schedule, because I think our whole January schedule really shows the range of programs that Masterpiece does. We started out with Glenda Jackson in a contemporary show called Elizabeth is Missing. Now we're doing a period drama with All Creatures Great and Small and Miss Scarlet. And Long Song is just a really fabulous story that speaks to our own history of slavery too.
Yeah, I wanted to talk too about the racial inequality in programming that we've all been participating in one way or another, and obviously British shows have been mostly focused on British people, white Caucasian British people. I was struck over the break. I went back and started watching Prime Suspect and started at season 1, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And I watched it when it first came out. You know, it's been years since decades since I watched it. And I was so struck by season 2, where one of the main characters, Black English person, is held in the police station, and he's yelling he can't breathe because he has an asthma attack.
Oh my God.
And there, and it was so, it was both sad because we've been there, right? And here we are again. But I was also struck by how insightful that Prime Suspect episode from 20 years or so ago was.
Right.
But I'm now wondering, how are you looking at programming and bringing voices in to represent because everybody has been here in every era. How do we get our stories and the stories up onto Masterpiece?
Well, it is something we're seriously looking at and doing something about. When George Floyd was murdered, I can tell you that we had some very serious conversations, not only with our staff, but colleagues at WGBH about how can we do better. And I think everybody felt a real urgency, that now is the time and we really had to make some changes. So I got on the phone with our UK producers, first with the ones that had shows in development. And we talked about those shows. We talked about in what way could we do better? Could we bring people of color into the writing room? What directors were available to us to be able to work on the projects? How could we create diversity both on screen and also behind the camera? And the thing that was very heartening was that every producer who I talked to felt the same kind of urgency and commitment. So we're now in the process on one particular show that's about to start filming next March. We have been able to bring in a couple of actors who will play the roles, actors who we hadn't considered before that now are going to be a very important part of the story and going forward. We also have a project that we haven't been able to announce yet, but is a costume drama for which we have made the decision, even before Bridgerton came out, that it will be colorblind casting. And having watched Bridgerton and seeing how successful that was,
show that's on Netflix, right?
Netflix, right. I think we're feeling good about that. But the most important thing that we can do, and we are doing, is really looking for stories that really speak to the experience of people of color. And that will just take more time because, as I said before, it takes us about 18 months to take something from development through to completion. So that is a process that we're starting with. And I have brought on a person of color who's a consultant who's working with me on particular projects right at the moment. We felt we didn't have anybody at our editorial level that we could turn to and really have some serious conversations. So that we've done now and are beginning that process.
I want to circle back and talk a little bit more about All Creatures Great and Small. What was the appeal? Obviously it's a great story and there's so much texture and it's beautiful. But what was the appeal to say, let's go back with this?
It wasn't really a very hard decision. The producer who came to us with the project is Colin Callender. And we've worked with Colin a lot. He did Wolf Hall, which many Masterpiece viewers might remember, and he also did Little Women. So when he came to us and said, I'd really like to do a new adaptation of this, and I have some ideas about it, we were like, well, we're all in. What do you want to do? And one of the things he did want to bring to it was he wanted to change the backstories of the women characters so that they had more agency. So what I love about adaptations is that it's a chance to really bring a kind of modern sensibility to a work. And the writer, Ben Vanstone, has done a brilliant job really creating a heartwarming show. And the other thing that we were excited about was Colin had decided he was going to hire Brian Percival, who was the very first director on Downton Abbey. And Brian is the one who cast all those great actors. And so we knew that he would do a great job at casting the ensemble for All Creatures. So not a really hard decision. I think we're all going to be rewarded by it because it really is a very loving and heartwarming show, just kind of exactly at the time we need it. So I think it's pretty exciting we have it launching this Sunday.
We have a question from someone on social media. And again, if you have a question, please post it. Are there shows that became vastly more popular in America than they ever were in England?
Well, interestingly, Sanditon, which was a show we just had last year, which was based on a Jane Austen unfinished novel. And it went out in the UK to not much acclaim. But when it came around to us, it did extremely well. And unfortunately, because it didn't do well in the UK, there was only one season. Even, I would say Victoria probably did a bit better here than it did in the UK. It became one of our most beloved shows. It's hard to say, what's going to work, what's not. Every time, it's a risk. But I would say our audience does love a good costume drama. And especially, and especially likes women characters who are, going through a lot of obstacles, but are somehow able to come into their own sense of empowerment. And that seems to be something our audience really likes.
So we're at the sort of 50-year inflection point, right? So we're looking forward to the next 50 years. And as I am evidence, your viewers are getting older. So I'm a little bit older than I was when I first started watching. I know my daughter loves Sherlock. That was her introduction to Masterpiece. What do you think about, what are you doing to try and reach the next generation or the generations of fans, drama fans for Masterpiece?
I think what we've discovered is that certainly younger people, younger women aren't watching television. They're watching it in other ways, streaming, however they do it. And so what's really important for us is to make sure that we're getting out to those people and letting them know that we have a show. Because what we're finding is once young people find our show, then they're hooked. So for us, the biggest challenge is making sure, since you're not able to advertise on television to reach those people, that we, have a very active social media team, that we encourage that word of mouth, that we work with influencers and other people who are reaching that particular age group. But, it's not that we're changing fundamentally the programs that we're doing. I think the costume dramas appear, and I think we certainly discovered through Downton Abbey, if it's a good show, sometimes if it's historical, a lot of people like historical shows. If we do a really good show, people will find it. So that's our plan. We're going to keep doing what we're doing.
I had a male colleague who was in his early 30s who fell in love with the World War I story of Downton and got totally hooked into it. And, it's just the multi-layers of something for everyone with great quality. Suzanne Simpson, so great to see you again. I hope we see each other in person next time. So congratulations. And thanks so much for all your great work. And we look forward to seeing more Masterpiece.
No, thank you for doing this. We're in a celebratory mood, so thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody on Facebook and YouTube for watching. We're going to see you in a few weeks with frontline filmmaker Michael Kirk to get a look at the incoming Biden administration. Thanks for watching us. Thanks for joining Lunch Hour Live. Happy New Year. We'll see you soon.